Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are undertaking a very specialized mission for you, the learner.
Mm-hmm.
We're moving past the common barriers of communication, grammar mistakes, vocabulary gaps, and diving straight into the deep structural mechanics of speech itself.
The real nuts and bolts.
Exactly. Our sources today focus entirely on this framework for phonetic and prosodic training.
Which can sound a bit academic.
It can, but this isn't just theory. It's a practical blueprint for achieving what we might call sonic transparency, making your content so effortless to understand that the listener can focus completely on your meaning.
Right. The delivery system becomes invisible.
Okay, let's unpack this framework. It organizes effective spoken language into a pretty strict hierarchy, defined by three crucial elements: sound practice, stress, and intonation.
And the order is critical.
The order is everything. What's revolutionary about the source material is its insistence that these three have to be mastered in that order. We're going to explore why failing at step one means you can, never really master step three.
That hierarchy is absolutely key. I mean, when we analyze communication breakdown, the sources suggest that the most persistent issues aren't caused by a lack of good words,
Right.
but by a failure in the delivery system, the phonetics, the prosody. That's the infrastructure that carries the cargo of your ideas.
So if the road is bad,
If the infrastructure is faulty, the message arrives damaged. It doesn't matter how good the cargo is.
that makes the stakes extremely high.
Yep.
So let's start at that foundational level, pronunciation training. The source material, it immediately funnels this big goal down into just sound practice. Why this almost microscopic focus on individual sounds first?
Well, what's so insightful here is that the sources treat sound practice as a physical, almost a biological necessity before it's even a linguistic one.
Physical.
Yeah, this is the work of pure phonetics.
Yeah.
It's mastering the production of individual, discrete speech sounds, phonemes. It's about training your articulators, your tongue, your lips, your vocal cords to hit the exact physical targets that the language requires.
So it's not just about knowing the sound in your head. It's about your mouth being able to physically produce it consistently, almost like a specific muscle memory.
Exactly. It is a muscle memory. And the source material highlights that most L2 speakers struggle not just with simple sound substitution like, say, confusing the phrase,
A common one.
very common, but with these complex co-articulation errors. And co-articulation is just how one sound influences the next in, rapid speech. If that physical transition between sounds is off, the word might be technically there, but the acoustic signal is just muddy.
So if I'm trying to say the word cat,
Yeah.
and my tongue placement is a little off for the initial C because it's already kind of getting ready for the A,
Yes,
that slight deviation forces the listener to use effort to figure out what word I even meant.
precisely. And that effort is the key consequence of neglecting sound practice. If those foundational sounds are inconsistent or incorrect, the listener has to expend a massive cognitive load just to decode the words.
They're stuck.
They're completely stalled at the recognition phase. They can't move on to processing the meaning because they're stuck trying to figure out if you said sheet or ship. The brain is just working overtime to translate sound waves into something it recognizes.
So to recap the source's argument here, sound practice provides the foundational accuracy. Without it, everything else, your grammar, your vocabulary, your sophisticated arguments, it all has to fight this uphill battle against, decoding fatigue.
That's a perfect summary. Accuracy first, fluency second.
Now, once we have that phonetic accuracy, natural speech needs movement. It needs rhythm. And the training framework immediately goes from sound practice to stress. This is where we shift from phonetics into the dynamic world of prosody. Why is stress the immediate next step? Why is it separate from just basic sound practice?
Because we've transitioned from the note, the individual sound, to the beat. Prosody is all about that systematic variation in speech, the rhythm and the melody. And stress is the first element of that because it dictates the entire rhythmic structure of the language. It tells the listener which syllables are important inside a word, and then which words are important inside a sentence.
We hear that stress is important all the time, but is the source material suggesting that getting the stress wrong is actually a more immediate communication barrier than, say, a persistent but minor sound error?
In many cases, yes, absolutely. Because stress operates at two crucial levels at the same time, and both are essential for parsing language efficiently.
Okay, two levels.
The first is Word stress. This is lexical. It's built into the word itself. Think of the classic example, record, the noun, versus record, the verb.
Right, like a historical account versus documenting something.
Exactly. If you stress the wrong syllable, you don't just risk sounding a little off, you risk transmitting the wrong word entirely. The listener's brain expects a certain rhythmic pattern to access a word in its mental dictionary.
So if the rhythm is wrong,
The word retrieval fails, even if the sounds are perfect.
so the brain hears the sounds, but it rejects the word because the template doesn't match.
Precisely. Now, the second level, sentence stress. This is where our sources say it gets highly technical and strategic.
Okay.
This isn't just about emphasizing a word. It's about using stress to signal the information structure of the entire sentence, specifically differentiating between old, known information and new, focus information.
The new stuff.
Training this helps the speaker literally manage the listener's attention. If you want to introduce a new idea, you stress it heavily. If you're referencing something you've already discussed, you de-stress those words.
Okay, walk me through a high-stakes example of that. Let's say I'm in a meeting giving a financial update.
Certainly. Okay, so if you say, we projected growth last quarter, but the actual earnings were flat. Stressing actual makes the flatness the new crucial piece of information. That's the headline.
Like the surprise.
If you were maybe challenging a previous assumption, you might say, we projected growth last quarter, but the actual earnings were flat. Now the focus is less on the earnings and more on who made that bad projection.
So the words are identical, but the focus, the sort of verbal highlighter, completely changes the conversational trajectory. The rhythm dictates what's relevant.
That's the power of sentence stress. It provides these instantaneous contextual cues that are so critical in professional settings where every bit of nuance matters. You're making sure the listener doesn't have to guess what part of your statement is the most important.
And this connects right back to you, the learner. Why should you focus on training emphasis? Because correct stress makes your speech predictable. It provides a reliable rhythm that lets the listener just relax and focus on the substance of your argument.
Instead of expending energy trying to decipher the cadence.
Exactly. The rhythm is the signal that says, pay attention, this part is important. So we've mastered the accurate notes with sound practice. We've got the steady beat with stress. The final piece of the training framework is intonation. If stress is the systematic beat, intonation has to be the melody, the pitch variation that wraps it all together.
And that melody is fundamental. It completes the whole prosodic picture. Intonation, which is just the rise and fall of pitch across phrases and sentences, serves two immense functions.
Okay, what are they?
Signaling grammatical structure and conveying emotional intent.
Let's talk about structure first.
Okay. The sources emphasize that intonation significantly impacts something called syntactic parsing speed.
That sounds technical.
It is, but it's a measurable effect. When your pitch drops at the end of a long sentence, it signals closure. It tells the listener's brain, okay, that main thought is complete. You can now finalize your understanding of that complex clause and sort of clear your memory buffer for the next one.
Wow, okay, so that's a real deep dive concept.
Yeah.
A sudden, unexpected rise or fall in the middle of a sentence can actually interfere with the cognitive process of linking words into grammatical groups.
Absolutely. Think about a simple list. If you're enumerating 3 points, A, B, and C, you typically use a rising intonation for A and for B.
To signal more is coming.
Exactly. And a falling tone for C to signal we're done. If you use a falling tone on A and B, the listener mentally stops after each point. They think you've finished, which just disrupts their comprehension of the entire structure.
And then beyond the structure, intonation is the primary carrier of all the subtle emotional cues, the attitudinal stuff.
It's the social lubricant of language. It really is. Training intonation means mastering how you convey deference, skepticism, enthusiasm, or even impatience, all without changing a single word.
It's a flat intonation.
A flat intonation, even if it's phonetically perfect, is perceived as cold, robotic, disinterested. And that's a huge social failure in communication.
So intonation determines whether I hear your words as a friendly suggestion or a stern command.
Right.
It's the difference between asking, you finished the report, with a rising curious tone,
Right.
versus stating you finished the report with a flat final tone that implies an expectation or maybe a prior agreement.
Precisely. And mastering that allows you to move beyond just information transfer to authentic human connection. It's a skill that allows for irony and humor and real depth of meaning.
So this brings us to a crucial synthesis of the whole framework. We have these three elements: sound practice for accuracy, stress for rhythm and relevance, and intonation for melody and attitude. How does the source material finalize its argument about these three working together as a fully integrated system?
They're completely interdependent. The source's biggest takeaway is that prosody, so stress and intonation, it can't compensate for severe phonetic errors, but excellent phonetics are totally insufficient without prosody.
You need both.
You have to have both. If you nail all the individual sounds, but you neglect the rhythm and the melody, you produce speech that is technically correct. But it sounds halting, effortful, and frankly, socially unskilled.
And that forces the listener to actively assemble the meaning rather than just absorbing it naturally. That is a powerful distinction. It's the difference between hearing a phrase read slowly by, I don't know, an old text-to-speech engine versus hearing it delivered by a confident, engaged human.
Right.
The ultimate goal, then, according to these sources, isn't just correctness. It's achieving that sonic transparency, letting your content pass through without any acoustic resistance.
And that reduction in resistance is all about maximizing efficiency. Correct stress and intonation, ensure your most important information is highlighted, the grammatical boundaries are clear. It just minimizes ambiguity and maximizes comprehension speed.
So this deep dive really shows that being well-informed about a language isn't just about the sheer number of words you know. It's about mastering these sonic tools. It's about designing your delivery to make sure your listener doesn't have to work overtime just to understand you.
And the alignment of those three elements, sound, stress, intonation, that is the secret to high-efficiency communication. It transforms accurate words into persuasive, engaging, and socially appropriate speech.
Which leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to consider. If these three elements are hierarchical, what happens when the two levels of prosody collide?
Well, that's interesting.
How might focusing exclusively on mastering those complex emotional cues in your intonation, the melody, how might that actually degrade communication in a professional setting if your words stress the rhythm is consistently wrong?
So you're trying to convey this deep emotion.
Right, you're trying to convey deep emotion, but your listener is stalled at the recognition phase because the internal rhythmic template of the words is just wrong. That conflict, that tension between an accurate melody and a flawed rhythm.
Yeah.
That's the true complexity and the challenge of advanced prosodic training.